Along the other two side, or along the other side here, the serged edge, we're actually going to do 3. So you'll do a third, you'll go a third of the distance, and a third of the distance, and then you'll leave the middle in the edge there. If you are right-handed, first one we're going to start with is the hand blind hem. If you're right-handed, you will start again on the right side, and you'll be sewing towards the left with your needle pointing to where you are going. If you're left-handed, you'll start at the opposite side and do the very same thing, only you'll start the other direction there. To do a hand blind hem, you've got a serged edge here. You actually fold that serging back right along the edge of it, and so you've got that edge that is folded back. And you've got it's almost a 1/4 inch that folds back along here. You take that little edge there and fold that thing back. This is done with a single thread again. You put your knot in the end of the thread the same way that we just talked about before. Fold that edge back, and I'm going to take a stitch through that folded edge. And I'm catching just the folded edge. I'm not catching the garment itself. And that catches and gets that knot in between the close and the hem. The interesting thing about this hem is the entire stitch is going to wind up in between there. Now I'm going to move over just a 1/4 inch, and now I take a stitch just above that folded edge, right there by it. I don't want to be up here, don't want to be down inside. I want to be right along that folded edge, over 1/4 inch, catching just a thread, and I'm not catching the hem at all, not catching the folded edge. I just caught the close. And now I'm going to come back over, my last stitch went into the close, next stitch is going to come back over into the hem, and so I'm going to move over 1/4 inch again, and I'm just going to catch that folded edge. And you don't have to catch very much of the folded edge. The bite of fabric that you take along the fold, once it's unfolded, will look twice as big as it was. So catch just a tiny little bit of it. And then I go back over to my close again, and catch just 1 or 2 threads at an angle. And then I come back to the folded edge of the hem again, the bottom of that serged edge, and catch that. And so I'm going to open this up and actually pull the threads now so you can see what happens here, and pull that out. And so it almost looks like it is zigzagging back and forth between the two sides. And that's really what it is doing. It's just going back and forth between the two as you sew that. Okay? So you're going to pull it so it's secure. Don't over pull it. Don't pull it too snug so you don't gather that edge up. And you're just going to head back and forth between those two at a 1/4 inch. Be very careful not to go too far, because where this is going back and forth, even though I'm going a 1/4 inch on the outside, they're actually 1/2 inch apart, because every other stitch is over here in my hem and is not showing. And so this puts your stitches on the garment 1/2 inch apart. And so you're going to stay pretty close to just going back and forth at every 1/4 inch. And just keep that little folded edge pulled down. Now on your sample, if you haven't done a lot of hand sewing, it may help you to actually pin the hem in place. If you are hemming the entire bottom of a skirt or a dress, absolutely you would have pins in here. Or by the time you get to the other side, as you hold this over your hand, it will have shifted and pulled your fabric completely off grain. And so you've got to be sure that that stays aligned and stays straight up and down from each other. And so don't be afraid to use some pins if you have not done a lot of hand sewing, so that you keep this in place. When you're a third of the way across there, we're going to tie that knot the very same as we have before. We're going to take a loop away from us and go up through that last stitch and barely catch that hemmed edge, and up to the middle of the loop, and then loop away or loop crosswise Do the same thing, head up through the center of that, and it ties that knot. Okay. Now the easiest way, or the best place to hide the thread this time, is actually right along that serged edge. Just go underneath those serged threads for ½ an inch or so, and pull your thread tail over, and then you can clip that edge. And so your hem is actually hidden between the clothes and the garment. And you will see, remember I said to be careful because when you unfold that, the stitch gets twice as big, so you'll have a fairly large stitch there on the inside. But on the outside, again, it's very, very blind. The nice thing about this is the hem stays hidden because even though my stitches are down here, the top edge of my hem, if you're looking through the shadows, is actually a ¼ inch above that, or where the serging is. And so it keeps that pretty blind. And that is the hand blind hem.